Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's public meeting on the Memorandum of Understanding to transfer the City of Westfield's water and wastewater utilities to Citizens Energy Group. This is the first of 4 public meetings being held over a period of several weeks to provide information about this unique opportunity for the city and also to collect your feedback. We welcome and, in fact, we encourage you to ask questions tonight. We have question cards that were available. The blue cards were available. Derek and Teresa, if you can stand up and show them the cards. If you don't have one of these cards, raise your hand. We'll make sure you get a card. There's 2 gentlemen back there. And throughout the process, throughout the evening, we'll be collecting those cards from you, and we will ask questions after the presentation from our 2 panelists. I'd like to provide you with a quick overview of what we plan to accomplish this evening. In a moment, I'll introduce our presenters, when we will discuss the decision-making process as well as explain the Memorandum of Understanding. You'll hear firsthand about this transfer and how it will benefit the residents of Westfield. We will discuss the importance of governance and accountability along with due diligence in this process. And we will also explain the various steps involved in the approval process. And then we'll also, as I mentioned, take your questions after the presentation. Joining us tonight to make a presentation and answer your questions are Westfield Mayor Andy Cook and Mike Stroll, Vice President of Customer Relationships with Citizens Energy Group. Now it's a pleasure to introduce Mayor Cook.
Thank you, Roger Harvey. We appreciate it and appreciate all of you coming this evening. This is a big step for the city of Westfield. We've been working very diligently to create a success story here in our city, and I hope most of you agree with us that we're on the right track and there's a lot of exciting things going on. We've been recognized, as have many of our fellow cities in Hamilton County and the county itself throughout the past several years as being on the right track as we develop our cities here in this very unique county of Hamilton. What we intend to do is to better identify our assets, better utilize our assets. One of the best ones we have is where we're sitting here this evening. Our Westfield schools, recognized as one of our most important assets that we have here in the community. So many people that I talk to, young people, why have you moved here to this climate, for gosh sakes, and this boring topography? Well, we're here because of the quality of the schools and the quality of the life that is emerging here in Westfield. And more interestingly, I talk to older people my age from California, Arizona, Florida. Why did you move here? Well, the answer is very common. You see, we moved here because, well, our kids live here and our grandkids live here, and our kids aren't going to move, and if we want to be near our grandchildren, here we are. And it tells a tale. And so when we began this administration some 4 or 5 years ago, we looked at, and what we heard was the people of the city of Westfield, what was then the town of Westfield, were asking for an administration that will manage our gift of growth well, plan for that growth, and diversify our tax base so that we can better support the quality of life and the quality of education and the amenities that we've been able to develop here in our precious city. Yes, we are growing. We have several improvements that we've been working on for 4 or 5 years now. The Grand Junction, the redevelopment of our downtown, as you know, is a project that was undertaken by a citizens group 4 years ago. It's slowly beginning to take shape. We've seen a return on our investment as a city in the downtown area, an investment of some $20 million by the J.C. Hart Company from the private sector in the apartments that are under construction right now. We've recently announced over the last year the construction of the Grand Park, which is intended to be another economic development piece that will give businesses a very unique reason to locate here in Westfield. Again, it's based on our assets, our location in the state, our location in the city, the sports culture that's already building in central Indiana, and will identify Westfield as the family sports capital of America. It will give businesses a unique reason to locate here, as we're already seeing by Main Street Healthcare, has invested nearly $17 million in building a facility adjacent to Grand Park, and both the apartments and the facility out there will be tax-paying entities that frankly would not have located here if it weren't for these amenities. And then fourthly, we've been working diligently with INDOT on a wonderful gift, if you will, from the state on the over $450 million investment that the state is making on the US 31 project. And frankly, when we began this 4 or 5 years ago, we did not know, well, the plans for US 31 were still on paper. We didn't even know at that time if it was going to occur. But thanks to some very innovative financial thinking on the part of our governor and the Major Moves program, that project is progressing. That project is progressing 4 years ahead of schedule to be completed in 2014, and it's being paid for with cash. So really the first 4 years of this administration, we've spent a lot of time, a lot of diligence planning. We've developed the Grand Junction Task Force, the Grand Park Sports Commission, and on this endeavor that we're here today, we formed another group made up of some citizens and some of our counselors, citizens-directed projects that are made to enhance our city and diversify our tax base. And we're very happy to say that the results of that planning are beginning to appear. We mentioned a couple of projects already under construction, but as we speak, our housing permits are growing over 20% from last year. We have over 5 rezones, commercial and residential, going through the process of rezoning right now that will greatly enhance our tax base. These projects, for the most part, most of these projects are here because of the investments that we've made in our trail system, our downtown planning, and our Grand Park planning. So we are seeing the growth happening. Now, what are the challenges that we have as a city as these growth issues begin to hit us? And that is the construction and therefore the financing of our infrastructure needs. That is to say, the roadway improvements we need to make, the trail improvements, the utility improvements that we need to make. And like many cities, and you read this across all of Indiana, if not the nation, cities are challenged financially. Our financial challenges are even greater because we are in a growth period. We have several of these new facilities will be coming on board, such as the healthcare, such as the apartment complexes, and the city's Westfield will not see the impact of that new tax growth till probably the year 2015. Yet these new businesses to our city will need and will be provided with public safety services, roadway services, all the full services of the city. So the challenge becomes, how do we address these needs with the income constraints that we have? Further challenges to all cities in Indiana have been the recent 1%, 2%, and 3% tax caps. A great thing for many of we residents is we saw some pretty hefty reductions in our property tax bills. That means less income for cities. Matter of fact, in the budget year that we're planning now, in year 2013, the city of Westfield will receive less. We will receive $2 million less over that amount than we would have received pre-cap. So we have a great need for services and even less money per capita to do so with. So how does a city, a growing city, address these challenges? And what we have looked at, and with the cooperation and direction of our council and our staff, is they've asked our city to become even more creative and innovative in the way that we look at what we're doing. I want to thank each and every one of you for coming to be here with us this evening and allow us the opportunity to present to you and to listen to you live and in person the innovative concept that we have come up with. And in this case, as you've all read, it is the proposed transfer of our water and wastewater utility assets to the private sector. We began this process nearly a year ago when we examined and began to ask questions: do we have assets in this city that perhaps we could leverage to reach out and fulfill some of these financial needs? We formed a group of professionals that have been through this process before. We asked two of our city councilors, Jim Ake and John Dipple, who I believe are here with us this evening, and a citizen member of our Board of Public Works and Safety, Mr. Mark Hairbrandt. And I'd certainly like to thank the three of you for giving many, many hours to this process. It's taken a lot of time. From there, we asked this group to consider looking at the utility as an asset that could be leveraged. Their charge was to make recommendations step by step and come back to the administration and make those recommendations. The first step was, do we have an asset that has equity? And the answer was, yes, we do. Second question is, does that asset have market value? And our group determined that, yes, it does. The third step was, okay, using the resources and the professionalism we have, develop a request for proposal that we would send out to the private sector for their requesting their proposals. And this was done, I think, in approximately the month of April, when we first announced that we would formally be considering this. The group then, over a period of months, received 3 formal proposals from the private sector, and the group spent several months at that point evaluating those 3 proposals, choosing in order 1, 2, 3 who they would begin talking with for proposals in the best interest of the city. At that point, the group came back to me and said that we believe that we would like to start speaking with Citizens Energy of Indianapolis. At that point, the group engaged in many, many hours of negotiations and arrived at a price and conditions of which we are here to discuss with you this evening. When we're going through this, we recognize that this is not just, okay, we're going to shove this over here and we're out of it. A utility is key to the development of a city. And we know that it is not uncommon to have private utilities throughout developing cities. Matter of fact, over half of the citizens of Indiana today are served by a private water system, including some of our other Hamilton County cities who have also experienced growth. We're looking for reputation. We're looking for the customer service to continue at the level that I hope you all feel that the city of Westfield has provided. Pardon me. With that, what you have here is the outline of what Citizens Energy has offered the city of Westfield in exchange for transferring the assets. $91 million. That figure will allow us to pay off 100% of the utility debt that is held by the city of Westfield today. Now, I know that doesn't sound very governmental today with all that's going on across our country. We feel it is a very responsible thing to do for the city of Westfield in the short term and in the long term. In the scope of the total city finances, this would allow us to return to eliminate nearly 50% of our total debt in this city. And I would challenge you to see if any other city in the state of Indiana or perhaps the country is approaching that. We've asked them to address what's going to happen to rates. And we'll get into more detail with you with that as we go. Question commonly asked of me, well, what happens to our employees? And great employees they are. They've built a wonderful system. It is a utility that when we had a lot of companies come in here to look at whether they were going to make a proposal, they took a look at it and they said, I'm not sure what we would do better. Many times, if you look at the history of these transactions across the country, you'll see that it's usually a city that has gotten itself in rate trouble by failing to recognize the needs for rate increases due to political reasons, and a water system deteriorates to the point that they either bail out to the private sector or, as the city of Martinsville is encompassed last year, an 85% increase in their water rates. I'm proud to say the city of Westfield, although yes, we have raised rates, have done so slowly and at a prescribed 5-year basis as addressed by our council. Rate mitigation is a huge issue that we'll talk about. But our employees, all utility employees will be offered employment with Citizens Energy at their approximate level of compensation today. And one point that I want to make that is a small item on there, second from the bottom, regional water strategy. I can't stress how important our long-term water needs will be. We saw a little bit about this summer, where the drought condition forced us to take some precautionary and preventative measures to limit the amount of water that people can use. Now, you all know that many other areas of the country, that is a way of life. And in the coming 10, 20, 50 years, the need for water planning in the long term is going to become more and more a part of our Hoosier culture. We feel very strongly that the city of Westfield is in a much better position by working with a large entity as Citizens Energy to protect and guarantee a sustainable water supply for Westfield than if we were out competing with them and our other municipalities and other private sector companies around this area where our wells are placed. It is going to become an issue in the years to come. So not only will we financially be able to pay down a very sizable amount of debt, it will also result in approximately $40 million in cash that this city can use to upgrade its infrastructure. And all of you know that drive through some of our intersections know that we have not been able to keep up with our roadway improvements. Our trail system is excellent, but one of the biggest complaints I get about our trail systems is, Mayor, I love the Monon, I can't get there from my neighborhood. And how many times have you driven across the country in some of our high-growth cities while you're tied up in traffic and have said to yourself, why can't government stay ahead of the growth they know is coming? We have a very unique opportunity here in Westfield to add to our commercial tax base and entice more commercial tax base and residences by addressing our roadway infrastructure needs. And any of you that drive through some of our antiquated four-way stops at 5:30 in the afternoon know exactly what I'm talking about. We have put out on our Facebook and our city site a list of proposed infrastructure improvements. And we have asked all of you to take the time to go on there and to actually vote for what you would like to see. There's some interesting results coming up. I see the winner is going back and forth. And of course, how much and what we're able to do is not just going to be determined by this administration or our Public Works Department or what. Our City Council is very, very much involved, and will have control over how these proceeds will be responsibly be spent. We intend to invest these proceeds in our city. I'm not talking about resurfacing streets. I'm talking about making physical improvements that will continue the level of growth that we're seeing here today. This is a picture of the website on the Facebook, if you haven't seen that. I saw today that I think 156 in Spring Mill sprung way out of ahead of 161st and Cary. Must be a campaign going on the west side, so we'll certainly take a look at that. And the question's been asking me, but wait a minute, you already had signs up that said these, a couple of roundabouts on the west side would proceed. Yes, they are planned to proceed, but understand that those planned improvements are like 80-20 participation, 80% from the state and federal and 20% from you and I. So these proceeds will allow us to ensure these projects are going to happen, plus some others. All right, how do we know that working with citizens is going to work out well for us? How do we keep track of it? Several of the items that have been built into the requirements, the agreement, include assurances, quarterly reports directly by citizens to the council, to our council, regular updates to our highly successful WeCan community network, a place to sit on the Service Advisory Board, which is becoming more and more of a network, probably for also for longer-term water supply. Won't our rates spiral out of control under the private sector? No, they will not. Now your rates are controlled by your city council. And every time they raise rates, you let them know about how you don't like it. Hence, as in the case in Martinsville, sometimes the council does not raise rates. That can be even a nastier situation. The rates will, under their ownership, will be controlled by the Public Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. That is the same commission that controls your electrical rates and your natural gas rates. And I don't think any of us have seen those spiral out of control. Also, on the consumer side is the Indiana Office of Utility Consumer Counselor, who represents all of us at the IURC level. We feel that this level that is, as I said, nearly half the citizens, over half the citizens of Indiana today are served by a private utility, and will afford the accountability that our council is demanding should this transfer of assets take place. Now, I'm pleased to turn the clicker over to Michael Stroller from Citizens Energy. We'll be glad to answer questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. Well, we are absolutely delighted to be here tonight as the company that the selection committee has chosen to move forward with. And we're absolutely delighted because you all have something special going on here. And I know as citizens of Westfield, you realize that. But when people come into this community and see just how special it is, it's very impressive. You have a community that is together collaborating on how to grow the community, how to stay current, how to get ahead of the curve, but how to do so in a way that preserves the charm and the quality of life of the city of Westfield. So you should all be commended on that. You really do have a great story here. When we found out that the city was putting the assets up for sale, I have to tell you we were very aggressive in bidding for these assets, and we were because this makes a lot of sense for citizens, and it makes a lot of sense for the citizens of Westfield in a way that transactions don't always do. The value proposition of this deal is really focused about four things, I think. It's about, first of all, system reliability, maintaining the already good systems that you have, and you do have well-maintained and excellent systems today. And part of that system reliability, I would focus on a couple of areas, operating efficiency and water supply planning. Those are two key elements to system reliability. The second part of the value proposition is around capital planning. Utilities are highly capital-intensive businesses with a lot of fixed cost. And so it's critical that capital planning be done effectively, that it be done smart, that it be done with cost control in mind. And so that's another part of this value proposition. The third is rates. Again, that's what as customers you care about. You care about what your bill is. You care about reliability, but you care about what your bill is. And so it's important to talk about rates, and we'll do that in just a second. And then the fourth is customer satisfaction. And I think when you hear our story around customer satisfaction, I certainly hope that you'll believe that we can deliver in that regard. Citizens is a unique entity. Most of you probably know us as Citizens Gas, but the company is much broader than that. It was formed about 125 years ago by Colonel Eli Lilly and some founding fathers of the city of Indianapolis to put the assets, at the time, the natural gas assets in Indianapolis, in a trust that would benefit the residents of Marion County. What that did is that instilled in the company, and I think the very soul of who Citizens is, a commitment to the communities that they live and operate in, and a commitment to customer satisfaction. And again, as I go through this presentation, I'll give you some examples of that, but that's who we are. We're a little broader than just gas and water. We own really an interest in about 13 different types of businesses that serve the energy market in some way. We own oil assets in southern Indiana. We own a district energy system in Indianapolis that provides chilled water and steam heat to about 300 business customers and the IUPUI campus. We recently just had another innovative public-private partnership with the new Wishart Hospital that's being built downtown, who, much like the city, needed to find a way to leverage their dollars for maximum benefit to the people who would use Wishart Hospital. And we structured a deal where we offered and they accepted an opportunity to build an energy plant for them to supply their energy needs, where we own and operate that plant for the benefit of Wishart Hospital. And that was a terrific public-private partnership as well. We own a couple of other businesses. We own a remittance processing company. We own a gas marketing company called Proliance Energy. So all of that is really just to say we're a very broad company, and we bring a lot of resources to the table. Probably one of the keynotes of our acquisitions over the last several years has been Citizens Gas of Westfield, Westfield Gas Company that we purchased back in 2004. At the time that we bought that gas company, it had the highest gas rates in the state of Indiana, and we were able to bring those gas rates down where it's competitive now with other gas companies of its size in Indiana, and we've doubled the investment in infrastructure in that asset as well. So what we bring to the table here is an integrated gas, water, and wastewater utility. And with that, we think we're going to bring tremendous synergies that will both help keep your rates lower than they might have been if we didn't own the assets, and improve the system reliability and the integrity of the systems as we move forward over the years. So system reliability, there are two components to that, as I said. One is operating efficiency. And this deal makes all the sense in the world with respect to operating efficiency. Because our systems are adjacent to each other, once we own the assets and we're able to connect those systems together, it provides us the opportunity to leverage and optimize those systems in a way that we couldn't do before. Both of the systems are stronger when they come together than they were separately, whether it be having multiple routes from which to deliver water so that we can best leverage the assets during peak demand periods, or just general operating synergies from the operating and maintenance of the utilities. We bring to that the ability to control costs, the ability to improve service, the ability to maintain those assets over time, all of which I think will be good for the community. The second part of system reliability is water planning. And the mayor mentioned it, and we're going to mention it again, that regional water supply planning is crucial here. When Citizens acquires these assets, we will manage a good portion of the water resource in central Indiana. And what that brings for us is an ability to look across the multiple communities that we serve and find a long-term water resource plan that provides for the growth of communities and provides for the needs of residents. The aquifer that the Westfield Water Company operates out of today is shared by several other firms. It's shared by us, City of Carmel, Indiana American Water is in that aquifer as well, so there are a lot of players in that. As the town of Westfield grows, and if the growth materializes in the way that the mayor hopes it will, that aquifer may not be able to meet the long-term needs of the town of Westfield today. And water infrastructure is absolutely critical to economic development. When companies or developers or anyone's looking to come into a community, one of the first things they look at is the adequacy of water and the ability to deliver water for fire protection, drinking, and to be able to deliver it in a cost-effective manner. If it's not there, they find another place to go to. So to support economic development, long-term supply planning is critical. And at Citizens, we have that focus. We've looked at a number of options to bring additional water resource into this area over the long term. We're still working on that. We don't have answers today, but we've looked at things like building a pipeline to the Wabash River or the Ohio River and bringing long-term water supply in from those areas. We've looked at leading-edge technology, and again, our scale allows us to look at those types of options. Those are the things that municipal communities can't do because of scale. It's just cost prohibitive. So again, we think that it makes sense from that perspective. The second kind of value driver in this deal, I think, is capital planning, and that's an important part of running a utility as well. As I said, utilities are very capital intensive. It costs a lot of money to run a utility, and it's all fixed cost. You put assets in the ground, you put assets into generation capacity, and you're paying for those assets whether you have 10 customers or 1,000 customers. And the more customers you have on the system, the lower cost per customer it is. So when you take an integrated look at capital planning, what's key is something we call value engineering. I have with us tonight Lindsay Lindgren, who's our Vice President of Water Operations and a really gifted utility leader. And he says value engineering is really just common sense engineering. It's taking a look at projects and managing those projects in a way where you're putting the dollars at work so that they compound over time. You're putting the dollars at work so that you're not spending money on things that shouldn't happen, projects that shouldn't happen. We've been very successful at Citizens in doing that so far with the water and wastewater assets we acquired from the city of Indianapolis last year. So far, we had committed to $65 million in synergies in that deal. Right now, our projection is that we're going to achieve $85 million in the first 3 years. And a lot of that has been around solidifying our capital process, solidifying the way we use consultants, and managing those processes in a way that's best for the system as a whole across all of our utilities. And it's been very effective. What that means here with the acquisition of Westfield Water is that we can do certain things that maybe you wouldn't be able to do on your own. For instance, you plan to expand the Cherry Tree Treatment Facility. We may be able to defer that or delay it altogether because of this different water supply sources that we bring to the table. That's money that ultimately ends up in the citizens' pockets in the form of lower rates. There's plans to build, I think, a new storage tank for Maple Knoll. We may be able to defer or delay that as well because of the storage tank we have out at Terry. So those are the sorts of things that we can bring to the table that combines our operations and allows us to use resources in the best possible way that keeps your rates as low as possible. And I'll just hit this point head on. We'll talk about it again in a second, but rates are going up. They're going up for water utilities across the nation for everyone. Water infrastructure in the United States has gotten really old, and it needs to be replaced. Yours isn't so much old, it's in very good shape, but as you grow, you're going to have to add to it. And as you add infrastructure, rates go up. It has to be paid for. But when we combine our operations and we combine the scale that we bring to the table, we believe rates will go up less than they would under the city's ownership, regardless of whether we're for profit or not. It's the efficiencies, the economies of scale that we bring to the table. The third thing is rates. I want to talk a little bit about the rate impact. We have committed to not raising rates until 2016 beyond what the council has already committed to. The council passed ordinances to raise water and wastewater rates through 2016, and we will maintain those rates, and we won't raise rates above those levels. What we're projecting is, given the efficiencies that we bring to the operation, given our focus on value engineering, our model says that your rates will be 16% lower by 2020 than they would have been if the assets weren't sold to us. So again, rates are still going up, but they're going to be going up less under our ownership than they might under somebody else. The mayor also pointed out that our rates are regulated. This will be a regulated utility by the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. The IURC does have oversight over rate increases. It's a very interesting process. It's a litigious process. It's like a court proceeding. We have to file a case in chief proposing a rate increase. Members of the public are allowed to intervene in that case. In the case of residents, there's an agency called the Office of Utility Consumer Counselor that provides oversight of utilities on behalf of residential ratepayers, and they intervene in every case, and so there's an opportunity for your interest to be protected through them. It's an extra level of consumer protection that comes with this deal. The case gets tried, it gets litigated, and we have to prove that, in fact, we would need a rate increase in order to raise rates. So it's a level of protection that works. It's a sloppy process from time to time, but it's there for a reason. Monopolies, obviously, you have no place to go if you're purchasing from a monopoly. We're the only game in town. And monopolies can take two approaches to that. One approach is to say, I'm the only game in town, and you'll do what I tell you to do, and you'll pay what I tell you to pay. That seldom works. The other approach, and I think this is the approach you'll find Citizens has, is we'll say, because we're the only game in town, because we're a monopoly, we have a moral obligation to serve you the best possible way we can because you don't have a choice. Now, it doesn't mean we're always aiming for the lowest possible rate, because when you run a utility, they're sort of a three-legged stool. You've got system reliability, customer satisfaction, and rates, and those have to stay in tandem. There are times where we could reduce rates to the lowest possible amount, but it would impair and impact the system reliability and certainly would not lead to customer satisfaction. So we're always balancing those needs. But regulation exists for a reason. It exists because monopolies took advantage of the process years ago. It's a proxy for competition, and ultimately, I think it's a good thing for ratepayers. The last part of the value proposition is customer satisfaction, and I really think this is where Citizens sets ourselves apart. As I said earlier, when the Public Charitable Trust was created, it was created for the benefit of the residents of Marion County at the time. What that means is that for all of our enterprises then, what has been instilled in our organization is a deep commitment to customer satisfaction and community satisfaction. In fact, our vision is to serve our customers and communities with unparalleled excellence and integrity. And throughout our company, our employees, from our customer service representatives and our frontline staff in the field through Kerry Likens, our CEO, is absolutely committed to delivering the best customer satisfaction we can. And you know, as a utility, you don't always hit the ball out of the park. I mean, for us at Citizens in Indianapolis, we have 300,000 customers. We take 1.1 million phone calls a year from those customers. We have to bill 300,000 bills every month, which is close to 5 million bills a year. So we don't always get it right every time, but when we don't, what we do is try to recover quickly. We try to acknowledge if we've made a mistake, we recover from that, and we figure out how to fix it and how to move forward. And that's, I think, what you're going to see that we're going to bring to these assets as well. That customer satisfaction philosophy, that commitment has been recognized. We have been, for the last 2 years in a row, #1 in the Midwest in the J.D. Power Residential Gas Satisfaction Survey. That's an extraordinary achievement by any measure, and it's certainly extraordinary that we were #1 this year in the midst of integrating the water and wastewater acquisition and all the sort of chaos that ensues from doing an acquisition that big. So we're very proud of our commitment, and I commit to you here and now that you'll have that same commitment from Citizens as we move forward. Also, when we began this process, we did a poll among gas companies in the local area. And what we found is that the Citizens Gas of Westfield was the highest ranked gas company in that poll with customer satisfaction at about 88%. Again, I think part of that is because we've been able to expand payment options. We've been able to provide better service. We've been able to leverage the technology that we have being a utility of size. And so we're very proud of that. We're very proud that the people of Westfield have recognized that. And again, you have our commitment that will continue when this acquisition closes. So the timeline, obviously this meeting tonight, and there's 4 more public meetings. The mayor will have coffee next week with some folks, and he hopes so. And then we'll have 3 more town hall meetings, and then a public hearing on October the 29th before the council votes, and final consideration on November the 5th. That will then really be the launching point. If the deal is passed by the council, that then begins the point where we will initiate the regulatory process. As I mentioned earlier, that's typically a very litigious process. It takes a long time, and we would anticipate that process taking about 6 to 9 months before we were able to finally close and begin operations. So.
Thanks, Mike, and thank you, Mayor. And now is the time of the program we want to hear from you out there in the public. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have blue cards. We have a stack of them in the back. Derek and Teresa will go back and grab a stack of those. Please raise your hand if you'd like to submit a question, and we'll get you a blue card. When you have those filled out, those of you that you have them filled out, if you can just raise your hand with the card, that'd be great, and we'll be able to bring those questions up here. I want to start first. We have a question here, a comment and a question from Kurt Weitzel, and who says, I support 100% the sale to pay debt and improve local services. And I thought, Mayor, if you could talk a little bit more, explaining the process from here and how you envision, the council, reviewing this information and soliciting input from the public. Walk us through that process.
Well, I think we have to determine, first of all, what exactly are the dollars that we're going to have to work with. And we need to look at talking to some good financial planners, just like you would with your retirement account. What is the best use of these funds? We're actually looking right now at establishing a bond bank here in the city of Westfield, which would in essence mean we would perhaps take some of those funds and keep them in a form where they would earn income, and we would reinvest those funds back into the city. However, by a strange quirk of Indiana law, only cities over 35,000 population are able to do that. I haven't quite figured out why we cities less than 35,000 aren't eligible for that, but we're looking at that aspect. We've developed, working with our department heads, a number of projects that we know that people have asked for. We'll be looking at what is the best way to leverage these funds. Is it to pay cash for this and cash for that? And obviously the survey that we're taking right now. We'd like to hear from you And there may be some projects you have in mind that aren't on that list. But believe me, between Kurt and Melody, they have given me a list of desires that far exceed the list that you're seeing up there on the screen. But we will do those two things. Look at what's the best way to use these funds as investments, and secondly, work with the council to have their input. They will control these dollars and determine what it is best for this community, as we do with all of our decisions for the long-term viability of the city.
Mayor, thank you. The next question comes from Stephanie Tays, and it's in three parts, so feel free to jump in, either one of you here. The first part of the question, does this include the part of Carmel that Westfield Utilities covers?
We don't serve Carmel, we do serve parts of Noblesville, and yes, it does.
Okay, and then it says here, the Indianapolis...
Gee, do you mean we might have some in Carmel? I didn't know that. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Huh. Yeah. Yes, you live in the city of Westfield. Yes.
And so my actual physical address is in Carmel, Indiana, but I receive a Westfield utility bill every month.
Well, you're just like me. I'm embarrassed to tell you, the mayor of Westfield has a Carmel address also. It's very embarrassing. But yes, we do live, if you're north of 146th Street, we do live in Westfield, thank God.
Yep.
It is very confusing.
It is.
Yes,
Yeah.
we have, just to confuse you more, we have at least, I think, 5 zip codes with other town names within the political boundaries of Westfield. Great question.
Yep. No.
You'll be right here.
We'll be a Citizens Energy Group.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you in Westfield, by the
All
way.
right. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so the second question Stephanie asked, she referred to an Indianapolis Star article that says reported a $16 million profit for Westfield. Will the new Citizens customers get increased rates to cover that?
A $16 million profit.
Wow.
for Westfield.
Kurt,
Yeah.
you hiding profits from me?
Yeah. No, I don't think the utilities generate anything near $16 million in profit. And again, the rates are what they are. We've committed to not raising the rates beyond what the town of Westfield has already passed through their ordinance in terms of rate increases. So whatever rates you're paying now are the rates you'll be paying when we take over as well.
And the third part, Mike, you may want to address this. She says, my bill is for water, sewer, and trash now. Will this be for that too? Talk about the integration down the road.
It will. It's actually, for those of you that like convenience, and I'm fairly familiar with this since we just went to a combined bill in Indianapolis over this last weekend. With this transaction, you'll be able to pay your gas, ultimately your gas, your water, your wastewater, your trash, and your stormwater bill all on one single bill. And we provide for a variety of payment options, electronic payment, physical drop boxes. We have a lobby downtown Indianapolis, which wouldn't be convenient for any of you. But there are multiple payment options, and it will all be on one bill.
Okay, our next
Does that
question.
help? That answer?
Okay.
All right.
All right, thank you, Stephanie, for your question. Our next question comes from Paul Ash, who makes reference to the $91 million. He says by dividing that by 10,000 residential customers equals $9,100 per household. His question is this not essentially an additional $9,100 mortgage on each household?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're looking at this with models that go over the long term that assumes, first of all, growth in the model. We have some fairly significant growth rates in the model based on what we think the town of Westfield will do. And the premium that's out there, you may have seen in the Star article, the appraised value was $71 million or something, and the negotiated value is $91 million. That's based on a very long-term look at what we think the assets will do over time. So it looks at growth rates, it looks at what we can afford to pay, investments that we'll need to make in the assets over time to accommodate the growth, and then rates will ultimately be set around what that, what the cost of running the utilities is, and then whatever return on investment that the IURC allows for.
Thank you, Paul, for that question. Any other questions on the blue cards that we've got a couple over there, real quick. In the meantime, while we're getting that question brought up, if you have a question, you haven't filled out a blue card, let's go ahead and open that up. Feel free to stand up. I just ask you to project your voice so we make sure that the mayor and Mike hear your question. All right, let's go to this question here from Joe Edwards, who says, is Citizens still organized as a public trust? Does this give citizens the ability to mitigate property taxes on assets?
Well, yes, Citizens is organized as a public trust. We are making this investment through a subsidiary of ours called Citizens Resources and Citizens Energy Services Company to form the new Citizens Utility. That's a for-profit subsidiary. And so as a for-profit subsidiary, we cannot avoid paying property taxes. And so we will pay approximately $2.3 million is our projection right now of property tax that wasn't previously being paid. So that's an increase in revenue to the town. A good portion of that goes to the schools, which I think the schools won't cry about to get a little extra money. The answer is no. We cannot avoid paying property taxes in the subsidiary in which we're acquiring the assets.
And we say yes.
Go ahead, sir. You have your hand up.
Yes. Indirectly and long-term, most definitely. Because as we're able to invest in our infrastructure, invite companies to locate here, invite other citizens to locate here, yes, this whole process of Grand Junction, US 31, Grand Park, this utility proposal, the underlying factor here is to lower our property taxes for businesses and for residents here in the city. Niles Daggy. Speak up, please, Niles.
Well, I'll try to take those questions. The first question around the public charitable trust and how you have influence is through this very public process at the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. Again, the Office of Utility Consumer Counselor exists solely to represent the interests of residential ratepayers in all utility proceedings. And believe me, they're strong advocates. If you've sat across the witness stand from their counsel as he cross-examines you on the veracity and validity of your rate filings, you'll know that they're a very strong advocate on behalf of residential ratepayers. There's also a Consumer Affairs Division at the Commission where complaints can be filed, and I can assure you that utilities take those complaints very seriously because of the influence and the power that the Regulatory Commission has on the utilities. You also still have a voice with your city county council and with the mayor here. When you run a utility in a town like Westfield or a city anywhere, believe me, the elected officials still have a lot of influence in getting things done. So you do have a voice. Your interests are represented. I would argue that your interests are represented more in this transaction because you now have an advocate on your behalf and an extra layer of consumer protection. The second question, I'm sorry, I forgot your second question as I was rambling on about the first. Yeah, the Vectren. There's the relationship, the Vectren is a competitor. Now, Vectren owns their own assets up here. They don't own any of, or they don't go through Citizens' assets. Vectren is a competitor, essentially. They're a gas company that provides gas service to the counties surrounding Marion County. We have an exclusive right to provide gas service within Marion County, and then Vectren is outside the territory.
So
There's no relationship.
If you have Vectren today, you will keep Vectren.
Yeah.
And if you're happy with them, the same utility commission regulates their rates as would regulate Citizens Energy rates for water and sewer here in Westfield, Niles.
Thank you, sir, for your question. Our next question we have is from Lisa Wilkin. Do the citizens in Westfield have any options to put this question to the voters in Westfield, and what is the process?
Well, the process is, what we're going through now is presenting to you what you would like for us to do, and the decision rests with the City Council. Please feel free to contact them and express yourself. They have the final say-so in this matter. After many of them listen to everybody here, they are eligible time-wise to vote on this next month. And these guys sitting right here are your best avenue for that.
There's a guy up there.
Question? Yes, sir.
So you said water from your
Water
supply
from
source?
our wells
Yeah.
sold elsewhere.
Yeah. Lindsay, you want to help me with this one?
Yeah, I can answer that. Citizens currently has a contract to purchase raw water from Westfield now, and has for some time. So that legal agreement will not change. Westfield will keep control of that, and we will keep the reliability of water supply that we currently have. So there's really no change in that relationship. In terms of the wastewater, wastewater will not be treated by Indianapolis, but we would look at treating wastewater residual solids at our Belmont Advanced Waste Treatment Plant to save money at the Westfield Treatment Plant by eliminating capital expansion to handle those solids. So just an example of the synergy that this deal would bring.
An added distinction that I think is important to clarify here too, just to make it very clear, is under Indiana Administrative Code, utilities have to be operated separately. So we can't take money from Westfield utilities and use that to fund capital investment at our Citizens Gas facility or Citizens Water facility. Likewise, we can't take funds from those utilities and supply that to Citizens Water of Westfield. We have to operate each of those utilities separately, and we have to account for the books and records separately in each of those utilities, and the code just doesn't allow for us to do that.
Does that answer your concerns on water supply?
Somewhat. We've got an asset here, and you talked earlier about looking across all the assets that you're going to be managing and in the long run balancing that. Are we going to take our asset that's here from the people of Westfield, and if there's excess, are we going to sell it off to somebody outside of our city boundaries?
Now, what we would do is the way we're looking at long-term water supply planning is to look at how to optimize all the assets in a way that benefit the system as a whole for the central Indiana region. I mean, we're all inextricably linked when it comes to water supply. And so what will be critical for us is figuring out ways to provide excess capacity to one jurisdiction when it needs it. With excess capacity we might have in another jurisdiction, it may mean, again, building infrastructure. If all of our assets are going to run out of water eventually and we see that demand is outpacing supply, it's building infrastructure to the Wabash River, as I indicated, or things of that nature. Those are all very costly things, but those are all part of that long-term water supply planning process. And that process isn't going to be hidden either. We're very transparent about that process. One of your employees now, Kurt Waniger, sits on the Service Advisory Board, and it's a constant topic of discussion there. The Service Advisory Board is a panel, a group that advises citizens, and it's a group of surrounding communities. It's Fishers, it's Avon, it's Westfield. A number of communities are represented there. And one of the focus is how do we provide enough water supply to each of the communities to meet everybody's needs. And that's what I mean by regional water supply planning. And again, if there's a fear out there or a worry about are we going to take Westfield water and impair the residents of Westfield by selling that water somewhere else, we can't do that. As a utility, we have an obligation to serve our customers. And I don't mean just the moral obligation, we have a legal obligation to serve our customers. And so we will meet your needs.
The adequate water supply for Westfield is guaranteed as part of the conditions of this proposal. And as I touched on earlier, long-term, we're all very concerned about a long-term water supply. And with the recent drought that we had, recent legislation that has just gone through the state legislature and was ruled on by the Supreme Court, really addressed where cities have the rights to aquifers. And as I think Michael might have indicated before, we share an aquifer right now with several other private companies, with the city of Carmel. And our wells are mostly located over on the White River. Another company today could come in and literally sink a well beside ours and pump more water than we could. And we have got to develop a long-term water supply plan for our region. And we feel very strongly that our long-term water interests are much better protected being a part of a large entity than if we were this little entity surrounded by a lot of competition.
It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked it.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions?
Niles?
Yeah. I'm sorry, ma'am. Go ahead again, and we'll get.
You said that the timeline started like today, and it goes through November 5th, which is the final consideration by the Westfield City Council, and then the IURC process, and you said that it takes about 6 to 9 months. So will we start seeing new bills like maybe in a year from now, or maybe 2014?
That's about right. Sometime probably late 2013 is when citizens would actually take over ownership and management of the assets.
Yes, sir.
Where is our wastewater treatment facility? Way out west on 166th Street, about, what, a half to 3/4 of a mile east of the Boone County line.
Yes, sir. Up there in the back.
In the future, I think the answer to that would be yes.
Yeah, it has to be eventually. As the growth occurs, it depends on the growth. I mean, as capacity requires, or I mean, as demand requires capacity, we'll build capacity. Yeah. I'm sure.
I'm sorry.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I'm paying Westville and Waynesville. I there's a drain out in front of my house, and last year I asked if Westville could clean it up, and they said they can't, it belongs to the state. Where's my money going to?
You have a drain that belongs to the state?
Right, it's out there in front of my house, and they said, Westville said they couldn't come clean it up because it belongs to the state.
Well,
Why am I paying the drain bill to Westville then?
well, I will ask our Public Works Director, Kurt Waniger, here 3 rows in front of you, to get with you and answer that question.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Does the city of Westville still have any asbestos, concrete, water mains?
Asbestos, water mains. Kurt's saying not to his knowledge, and he's been doing this several years. I'll have to say, not to my Public Works Director's best knowledge.
Yes, sir.
The more I'm hearing in the town, the city.
Yeah, I got to get you. We are a city now.
I said,
You mentioned that the water was a good asset. It is our growth, and I know you make some revenue. They're going to make a profit off of that, which is not a bad word, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But why don't we profit from that as a city, rather than selling our profit off at this moment for an instant cash cow?
Understand.
I know you want to do growth, I see your plan, I really
Right.
do. To me, though, it doesn't make good sense to sell off the car because you can't keep the gas in.
Well, first of all, the utility is not out of gas. The utility is, you use the word profit. Yes, they are a for-profit company. The city cannot make a profit from our utilities. It does provide cash flow. That's a good thing. It provides cash flow, especially when things are really growing. However, it's also created $45 million worth of debt to achieve that cash flow. It's not unlike you taking a second mortgage on your home. Hey, cash flow is great for a while, but you've also added to the debt. And with their economies of scale, they are able to generate a profit from efficiencies and from other resources that they have available. Their cost of buying materials at their scale is a lot better than ours. Their access to capital is a lot less than ours.
Is not the track record from Indianapolis, I think they were sold twice, weren't they, Indianapolis Water Company?
that's correct.
Is that not a good track record? I mean, is there any kind of a study that says that most utilities that are sold to private don't last? They're resold again and resold again?
I don't
I'll take this one, Mayor. I don't know about a study about that, and I understand your concern. It should be a concern with respect to the long-term preservation of the assets. I think you got to look at this situation differently, I believe. And the reason is because Citizens is a local company. We're not going anywhere. You're right, the Indianapolis Water Company had been sold twice before. It cannot be sold again. It's under the Public Charitable Trust umbrella in the city of Indianapolis that serves the residents of Marion County, and it can't be sold. I think as part of this deal, we committed that we wouldn't sell these assets for some time period, 10 years or something along that lines, and the city has a first right of refusal to buy the asset back if we do decide to sell it. But I'm telling you, we're not going to sell it. We're here for the long term. The city of Westfield has the first right of refusal to buy the asset
Yes,
if
we
we
do.
put it up for sale. We're a local company, and yes, we do make a profit. with respect to the subsidiary that we're buying the assets from. But those profits aren't going to New Jersey or Dubai or Beijing or New York. Those profits are staying right here in the local community. We are a local community. We have no aspirations to be anything but a local company and to serve the customers and the communities in which we live in.
We feel very strongly that financially it's a responsible thing to do. This time of debt incurrence in our country it's a scary thing. And we see it as an opportunity that, hey, we're challenged, as I said earlier, we're challenged financially with, hey, do we build a roundabout or do we build a water tower? And we can only go into so much debt. We can't do both.
Does not the utility base grow and then the wealth continues to come in at that point in time?
Yes, but the... No, because for example, in the next 5 years, we have to invest, should we retain the utility, we have to invest $5 million, $20 million in water system improvements over the next 5 years. Now, if we choose to go that route, our ability to finance some of the other improvements that we need to make, we just can't do it in this financially strapped time. So, in essence, the private sector will build a water tower, but they will not build a road improvement.
Yeah, they don't do roundabouts, but we want to do roundabouts.
Well, we want to do something to improve our traffic conditions, yes, I think.
Just one last interjection, and I guess I'm very curious, and I'd love to know the answer to this. Maybe they do, maybe somebody here does. Why would not Carmel, as upside down as they are, sell their utilities?
You want me to answer that question? Well, I don't know that you're going to get that answer from either Michael or I tonight, but...
Has citizens approached Carmel to buy their utilities?
We have not, and I would not presume to speak for Mayor Brainerd as to what he's thinking with regard to his assets.
Especially with all their debt.
Yeah,
No, I'm talking about Carmel.
yeah, right,
Probably approach you
right.
to sell their utility,
Oh,
offset all their debt.
Any other questions? We want to be respectful of everyone's time tonight. I know we're approaching our time. Well, let's do this and real quickly. Mayor and Mike, we covered a lot of ground tonight. Why don't we give each of you a few moments with some closing thoughts?
Go ahead. Sure. Well, again, I value this process. It's important for residents to have a voice in this process. I'm glad the mayor and the council are opening this up so that you do have a voice in it. It's the city's decision to sell the assets, but I can tell you that because the city is selling the assets, we are absolutely delighted to be a partner with you in this community. You do have our commitment that we will operate these assets for your benefit, that we'll operate these assets with excellence, we'll operate these assets with integrity, and we'll strive to earn your respect and trust from a customer satisfaction perspective.
5 years ago, you entrusted me and with our council to address the growth in this community, and I hope I have gained most of your trust in that, with everything that we do, that we look at, we do it for the best long-term interest of Westfield. There are no counselors that we have, we're very fortunate, that are in this for anything than what's best for the city of Westfield. And as you all know, the easiest thing for a politician, and I've asked people, don't call me that, but the easiest thing for a politician to do is nothing. And that is not the route that we have chosen in many of our endeavors. And we are offering this to you for what we feel is best, short-term and long-term. Please let me know, your counselors know how you feel about this. 903-6744. If you or your neighbors have questions, My phone's always on mute, so I rarely answer it, but I will call you back. And I'd love to hear what your comments are on where we're going. Thank you.
Mayor Cook and Mike Stroll, thank you both. And I'd like to take a moment to thank everyone here tonight for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. We greatly appreciate your participation tonight and also your questions. And a reminder, for the latest information on this process, as you see the timeline on the screen, please visit the city's website at westfield.in.gov. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and thank you very much for your time.